Welcome to another delicious episode of Creatively Speaking. In this episode, I'm thrilled to share the inspiring story of food blogger turned cookbook author Stephanie Melchion of thecozycook.com. Join us as we dive into Stephanie's journey from blogging to creating her wildly successful self-published cookbook, The Cozy Cook's Cookbook. Learn how involving her audience, maintaining creative control, and incorporating her personality into the book were essential ingredients to her success. Plus, discover the innovative marketing strategies she used to give her followers a front row seat during the cookbook creation process. So grab a seat and get ready to hear how Stephanie turned her cookbook dreams into a delicious reality. Hey, Stephanie, welcome to Creatively Speaking.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. It's great to be here.
So I'm so excited for us to start chatting. But before we do, I would love for you just to tell our audience a little bit about who you are and what you do.
So my name is Stephanie Melchion, and I am a food blogger at thecozycook.com. I started in 2013 and worked at it for about 5 years while maintaining my full-time job. Eventually, the income was enough where I could leave my full-time job and pursue the blog full-time. 2 years later, my husband joined me, and a year after that, my sister joined the team as well. So we have been growing at a great pace and just loving the blogging life.
That's awesome. Oh my gosh. And yeah. I love that it's a family affair too.
Yes.
I got to meet Mark and work with him too on this process, this journey that we went on. So I thought that was amazing that he was so he was on it, man. He asked me all the right questions.
Yes. Without him, I mean, I wouldn't have gone for the whole cookbook thing. I don't think at all, but he took on so much of the workload as far as like the stuff that I'm not good at. Yeah. He took that on with you, and it worked out so well.
I think it's great to have a partner in general, like that you can kind of bounce off of, and also just have somebody take up those things that you don't really need to be concerned with, or they can kind of fill you in so that you can really do what you are meant to do. So
that's exactly what it was. It was a lot of conversations between us where we were really ironing out how we were going to approach the cookbook thing, which is, the path that we took is one that I think a little bit less traditional, but because we were able to bounce ideas off each other and really work through it together, that's what made it, come together so well, for sure. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what prompted you to actually consider creating a cookbook?
So I've been approached by publishing companies in the past and never really gave it much consideration. I know I was pretty aware of how much work it would take. And even with the publishing aspect, they would pitch ideas that really weren't me. And in reading those pitches, I would sort of think to myself, if I'm ever going to do a book, I want it to be I want to call the shots, basically. I want full control. I don't want to do, work under their timelines or create content that they're asking me to create versus, I think part of what's led to my success is the content that I have been creating for my audience. And I would want the cookbook to reflect the same types of recipes. And so anyway, so I wasn't going to do a cookbook, but eventually our audience continued to grow, and they started demanding a cookbook, basically. Oh, when's a cookbook coming out? When's a cookbook coming out? And so that really, once I saw that interest kind of build up, it kind of was one of those things where it felt like we had to do one. And, because you're never really sure, it's a lot of work, and you're not really sure, are people really going to even buy it? But we did eventually decide, this is something that the audience obviously really wants. So, but I still knew it was something I wanted control over. And so my husband, Mark, was putting out feelers in some of our blogging groups and came across Tessa from Handle the Heat, and she had worked with you. And so we reached out to Tessa, and Tessa kind of gave us a rundown of her experience. And then we reached out to you. And the rest is history. Is huge success.
Yes. So, but going back to something you mentioned, which is, I hear from a lot of food bloggers that, publishers they're actually getting smarter in that they are approaching food
Yeah.
bloggers because they can see that you have an audience. You're already priming those audiences to purchase from you, so they know that they kind of have a built-in I guess audience
Readership,
for that, lack
followership.
of better term.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
Yep.
for the product. So they're getting smart in that they're approaching content creators like yourself, but it does still kind of go back to the fact that you have to have 80 to 90% new content. It's not like you can repurpose your work. So it does become a bigger thing when you go through a traditional publisher, because it's not like with you, you had decided, you knew what you were going to create. You knew what you were going to use starting off. So
yeah, I would say, there were a couple of turnoffs for me as far as working with a publisher. One is definitely creating all of that new content. And from a reader perspective, I don't, surprisingly, like contrast to what people may think, they wanted recipes in the book to be what is on the blog. They just wanted something they could physically hold. I don't think that they were looking for recipes that they weren't already kind of used to making every night. I think they wanted those, my smothered chicken and a side of my mashed potatoes with roasted green beans. I think they just wanted it all in a physical book. And I don't think they wanted a book with surprise content. So it was something where not only do I not want to create all of these recipes that I can't, use for the blog and have to save them for the book, but I don't think that's what my readers would want. And then the other part of working with a publisher is I think you get, I've never worked with one, but as far as, the benefit of having a book is that it's diversifying your income. And I certainly love the idea of having that ongoing recurring revenue with the book versus like maybe one lump sum that you get and then that's it. So like, with book sales, as long as the book keeps selling, we're going to keep making, the same amount of money per book, which is great. It's a great way to, diversify our income. It's proven very successful. So it was a combination of the money part and then, the content, the content that would be in the book for sure. Yeah. It kind of made it a no-brainer for me as to which route to take.
Yeah. And I think too, that point that you make about, your audience, they know what to expect. They love your recipes. So for them, it's almost like twofold, right? So for them, just like you said, they want those best of the best. They want the tried and trues.
Yes.
And working with you on this book, I know how much you test these recipes. So I could imagine that, creating all new content just kind of doesn't give you that opportunity. You're still going to obviously test it. It's going to be tested several times. But since these recipes have been around for quite some time, you also know that they are tested and
they're proven winners. Exactly. And when someone's making it from a somewhere that, the altitude is even different, like that's something I might want to consider. Certain things that, you can kind of only pull from audiences having tested it for several years, that those recipes really get fine-tuned and tested. So, I mean, absolutely, they're so fully tested. And that's kind of why we haven't talked about the fact that I am going to do another book yet, but we are definitely doing another one. And I'm putting enough space in between them because I do appreciate the audience having time to test these recipes beyond what I have tested, because I know my oven, I know my kitchen, but having, your audience test it in their ovens, their kitchens, or their stovetops with their cookware is just priceless, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, there's obviously different benefits to a traditional publisher, but I think too, when you're talking even about, receiving, money over time and it becomes like another revenue stream for the business, you do make more money on a self-published book if it's done right and if you can keep those sales up. But then what also the beauty of the book being self-published is it actually isn't really published yet. So because say you wanted to put it on, because right now, and we'll really dig into this, like your book isn't even on Amazon. So So even if you did want to go that route, like that becomes you're opening up a whole other audience, people that, your reach is going to expand. So it's almost like, I don't want to say once you exhaust your
but
it kind of is like,
it is.
Yeah.
I would say that's exactly right. I would say like once things really kind of hit a wall, and I'm surprised it hasn't yet, but it's still going. But eventually there will be a time when, people who were going to buy the book have bought the book, and like I think will exhaust like what, selling it on the blog. We might hit a point where yes, we can now open up that world, that Amazon world, for sure.
Yeah. So there's options. So that is the additional beauty of self-publishing, which is once it's out there, there's other things you can also do to leverage that product in different ways. And
you make the call on that. Like, you get to decide, what happens with it and when. And I think that's just the best. I obviously love the control aspect of it.
So speaking of some of that, like, so once you decided you were going to do it, and, we had talked, I had talked with Mark, and he asked me all the right questions. And you decided, let's do this. Did you already have a vision for the product? Like, did you have an end mind and goal? We take you through a whole process to kind of understand what you want, but had you been kind of dreaming about it and before it even started?
So actually, it was your suggestion for us to go to Barnes and Noble and take like a browse through books. And that was something that really started to get me inspired, because I didn't have this like set vision in my head ahead of time. So a combination of like looking at what I loved in the bookstore, and like I ordered a few books and was browsing through those, like Jessie James Decker, I kind of took inspiration from her books. I love her personality, and I kind of like just like liked looking through her books just to get ideas of like even just colors or like fonts or whatever. So that definitely started to inspire me. And then I really did loop in my audience from the beginning. So I would create polls on Instagram, like, what recipes do you guys want in this book? And I definitely got a ton of feedback. So they were kind of involved throughout the whole process, which I think really built anticipation up for the book, and was a big reason why we have sold so many, because they were really part of it from the beginning. I was checking my Instagram story because it's on a highlight, and I started looping them in about the book 59 weeks before it even started shipping. So it was like over a year's worth of like, what do you think should be in the book? I was trying not to do overkill, but enough where they were involved and like knew it was happening. I would do some like late nights, like showing my, like laptop typing stuff. When the proofs came in, I like published a story on that, like just little bits and pieces throughout, so that when pre-sales started, people were like ready, they just couldn't wait.
Yeah.
So I think that was huge. But so as far as inspiration from the book, they played a big role too, I would say.
Yeah, I think, all of that is amazing. I didn't even know all of that. So, and that's one of the things I definitely want to delve into a little more, because I do feel like you had been doing a lot of things that I didn't even see. Like, I try to follow all of our clients, and I try to stay up on what they're doing so that I can see like if I can repost something or if I can retag something, so that I can then push it out to a different audience even.
Right.
But one thing I want to say before we dig into that is that what you said about like you included like your personality in the book. I also think that was very important, because you had fun. You had a lot of fun with it, and that's how you are all the time. So it wasn't like you weren't trying to emulate this or that. Like you got ideas and inspiration around how you could bring your personality into it, and you went for it. I love the chapter title names. Like I like the little stories that you were telling about, with each chapter. And the book really does emulate your personality, the photos and with the family, and just a lot of them were really cute and like puns on things. And
yes,
I think that's really valuable. I think that, some people get so caught up in, they want this to be professional, and it can, and it is, yours is, it is. I mean, I tell a lot of my food blogging clients all the time that, I've been in the industry for quite some time. I have designed many, 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 many cookbooks for, celebrities to, first-time authors. And when it comes to photography, it is hit or miss, even with the professionals. So I love receiving, the content from content creators like yourself, because you are paying attention to that and you're able to kind of build out a story. And I think people should realize, like,
it's okay to bring in your personality. That's why people, and we try to tell them, we're like, that's why they are following you anyway. So
Right.
if you're known for something,
Yes.
if you have a certain thing that you talk about on the blog a lot, bring that into the book, because
Yes.
that's why they're going to buy it.
Exactly. It really should, they say put you on a plate, like on the cooking shows I
Yes.
watch. It should be you in a book. And I mean, I did have to try to rein myself in a little bit with the exclamation points that I love using, but we added some cute touches. I know that you helped me like put a few things in pink now and then, like we would, emphasize like a cute little line, and we would write it in pink instead of whatever the normal font color we had, like not black, but whatever it was. It's just like you really played a huge part in seeing my vision, which was like, I wanted it to look and feel like my blog and have like the same kind of color scheme. And even with the cover, like the background of the cover is the shooting surface that I work with every day, and that's on the blog. So it's like transformed the blog and me into a book. And it's just like, I agree with you. I think it's very on brand for sure, which is big, and I didn't realize, but something that I learned is that people sit down and they read the book like cover to cover. I didn't think people read cookbooks, but I often hear, oh, I just finished reading your book, like cover to cover. I'm like, what? I didn't know if anyone would read those little descriptions, but they like love them.
People love them. It's all about storytelling. I mean, really, you're inviting them into your home every time you post something, every time you do a story, every time you do a blog, every time there's a recipe that's new, you are really inviting them into your world, and there is a story involved. And I think that's the opportunity that cookbooks also provide, which is really for somebody to get to know you even more. They're already interested, so they've already purchased, and they've already been following, and they know who you are, and they're interested in those things. And exactly. I think it's a great way to just even expand your audience when people start to receive this that don't know you. It also gives them this insight into who you are. And so I think it's, some do shy away from including too much. They're just not sure, but we always encourage it. We always encourage it.
And the lifestyle photos too, something I would recommend. They're a lot of work to kind of like pull together, and at the time it's overwhelming a little bit, because you're kind of like, for me, I was trying to figure it out wardrobes and location and photography for each of these chapters, and it was something I wasn't originally going to do, but it's so worth it, because that is, like you said, just another like insight or invitation into your life, and people love to like flip. It makes it fun to flip through.
Yeah. It does. And it's not, and what's nice is too, it some of them have food, some of them don't. So it's like, it's a nice mix of photography in there.
For sure.
Yeah. So as I was saying, before we even started recording, I've been chatting with people, and they're like, oh, that's Stephanie. She's killing it. She's doing an amazing thing with her book. I think we're on our third printing.
Yeah.
Is that right? The third printing, which is amazing.
I know. I just got my advances. They look awesome. I just got them this week. They're beautiful.
So excited. I know. I got mine too. And so I was thrilled. I am so excited when I received them too, because it is like, it's a lot of work on your side, but on our side too. And I enjoy receiving those. Yeah.
Yes, it's so true. So many late night edits, but then it does eventually end.
Yes. Yes, it does. But like you were saying earlier about, including the audience even before it came out, like we do also try to tell the clients, don't be afraid to share this. Don't be afraid to tell them. But I do think you must be doing something just a little bit different, because I feel like it hasn't been overwhelming to see you sell the book. So I'm curious, like how you are marketing this to your audience and what different ways you're using.
So I do think the biggest, well, I would say Instagram, because we have a nice Instagram following and they're very involved, and I'm always posting stories. So definitely Instagram. I also include marketing on my Facebook stories, and it's like pinned on the top of my Facebook page. And then we blast it out to our email list every week, twice a week as well. And our email list has, I think I just checked 100,000 subscribers. So that's a lot of people that, as they continue as we continue to get new subscribers, if they're not aware that we have a book, like the first time they get an email, they're going to see that we have a book. So I include it in every one, like a PS, grab your copy of the Cozy Cookbook before they sell out again, because we did sell out, and I warned people we were selling out, and they they were very, sad when we did. It was right before the holidays too, so whoops. Yeah. But the only benefit of that is I think some late shoppers wouldn't have gotten the book in time anyway. So it was kind of like, we sold out, like we'll get them again in February. But so marketing, I mean, it's really been social media. And like I said, I follow people who I feel like I tried to do a balance of like not being too in your face, too overkill, like too salesy. I just try to make it fun. If I'm cooking something from the book, I'll always put that on my story. Like I'll have, an image of like, I'll hover over the image of the book, and then I'll like move it over to the stovetop so they can see like, so and smart. Show that it is the same thing. Like it looks like how it looks in the book. But just like kind of fun behind the scenes things, or if people post that they got the book and they tag me, I'll reshare that to my story. So lots of stuff on my stories, really. I think it's just about being like interactive with the audience. Some of them are only following me to see my dog Toby, but if they are watching for that, then they're going to have to see the book too. So, I think just really involving them in any way that I can, and continuing to include it in my email blast. And then on the blog itself, there's a banner at the top. So if you go to my homepage, you're going to see the Cozy Cookbook at the top. Hopefully you can't miss it. And I think I have it on the bottom of every post too. So it's there.
It's there. Yeah. But it's what is interesting. So a lot of this too is that email marketing. I think that is also just realizing that, by mentioning it a couple times a month, or even just having it there on your footer, it really does help to drive awareness to the cookbook is here. And I also think that it's, even it being sold out also makes people feel like they're left out. So so absolutely. It becomes this like, I've got to get it next time, or I've got to get my pre-order in or something.
Exactly. Yes. And actually it's surprising how many times it takes, like how many ways you can show that. Like, I feel like some people will still be like, oh, you have a cookbook. And I think like, how do you not know this? Just because I feel like I put it everywhere. But then the other thing too, that's I think helpful is that like on Instagram in the comments, people will say like, is this one in your cookbook? And someone will be like, oh, you have a cookbook? So just like even in like the comments, like people wonder, because the recipes are all on my blog, they're like, is this? So actually in each caption of my Instagram posts, if it's in the book, I'll include the page number.
Oh, that's smart.
That's just another way that if you're looking through that and say you love that recipe, that might entice you to get the book, because you're like, oh, this one's in the book. I make this all the time. Like,
that's great, because that's like really, it's like that cross marketing or referencing, even like what you would do in the cookbook about this goes well with this and this and this.
Yes.
It's like if you're doing it on the blog in some way referring back to the book, then it actually provides that awareness of, oh gosh, I can just get the book and it can be wonderful.
Exactly.
No, that's awesome. Did you do anything like any kind of special pre-sale like before it actually did arrive?
We did open pre-sales before the book arrived. I can't remember how far ahead of time. I remember I was like, I don't want it to be too far ahead of time, because some people will order and not realizing that it's a pre-sale. Even if you say pre-sale, they just order and think the book's on the way. So I was like, let's not do it too early, but it was enough where we definitely had like the warehouse had their hands full with getting the orders out. So that was great. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I think what I expected was that it would be like this big surge of initial orders and then like be dead and like that would be it. But luckily it hasn't, it's been just continuous. I would say we sell like on a low day, maybe 10 books, and kind of on a higher day of like 25. And as we get closer to the holidays, even more than that. So like even some days it's been 50. But it's just been steady, which is great.
That is good, because I think that's what, the consistency part is is going to be key when it comes to the determining how, I don't want to say how successful, but it is about like, you know, you do want to make your investment back, and then you also want to then, you know, exceed that investment.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the reason of creating these. So
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Have you found anything, did you guys do anything like in-person events or anything like that? Anything local?
No, we didn't. It was funny. We were in a local like kitchen store downtown from where I live, and my husband like was like, "Oh, she was kind of a big deal. She has a book." I was like, "Oh my God." He's like, I don't mention it locally much, and I probably should, but now they sell my book, which is funny. So we really should do more local stuff. It's just like, you know, I feel like, "Hey, like, here's my book. Do you want to, like, no pressure. Do you want to sell it in your store?" But I think people would love that, though. I just, you know, but so no, we haven't done much local, and I should do more, basically.
But that is again part of that, the next thing that you can do. So it becomes this like, okay, we are, you know, doing this successfully, and then what can we do once it feels like it's ready, once it's time, you know?
Yes.
The other thing is, I think, international shipping. So like, that's probably a whole other thing. Do you guys have international shipping? Or
we do. So we have a lot of people in Canada that are interested in the book, and shipping over there is expensive. So I think it's like, let's say $40 or so just for shipping. Mm-hmm. So we cover $20 of that, and a lot of them are willing to pay the other 20. So we go in halfway. And then for international, it's something similar. It can be crazy expensive, but we do have people in Australia and all over the place buying it. And so I think it's the same thing. We chip in like, I think $25 for shipping, and then whatever is left, like they can decide if they want to pay for shipping or not. So we offer it. It's just not, you know, it's just a little expensive.
Yeah, it is. I feel like shipping to Canada is I mean, even through like a service that says that they do ship to Canada.
Yeah,
you're just kind of like, this is so complicated.
It is.
And then even for them to receive it, I feel like it's complicated.
It is. I think customs plays a role somewhere along the line. I don't really know how it works. I think, already know what to expect, because we don't even get questions, which is awesome, because I'm still not clear. I think Mark probably gets it, but that's why I have him.
That's why. And he can be the one to go out and sell that book to those local.
Yeah,
he can help you on that. I can see him doing a great job at that.
Yes,
they'll be like, "Oh, you know, we'll take 10." You know.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
But that is all another thing too. Like, and that you can always get into local stores if you put your efforts towards it, which is great.
Exactly. And you know, the local store that does have it, they've been selling out recurringly, and I sign them, which is cool. So that's an added, you know, perk. If you get them over there, they're signed. So like you said, it's never ending, the ways that you can continue to branch out and market it, especially as if you see sales start to decline in certain areas. There's just so many other possibilities, which is awesome.
Yeah. And even just you being able to sort of offset those shipping costs, like, because the cost per unit, you know, to print these, and then, you know, the sales cost, and you have some wiggle room in there so that you can be flexible. I think that is also pretty enticing when you know that you can find a way around it, because
that's another, you know, piece. And that plays a role in why I do like having it only on the site, where we can control the price and keep it that way. And that way we do have that wiggle room where we can, you know, like you said, make some like chip in on shipping when needed or whatever. But you know, because we have enough of that wiggle room.
Yeah, there's enough margin in there.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Like, even if we don't make money on the book and we break pretty much even, at least they're getting the book, you know, like if they really want it, we can get it to them. So
that's awesome. And I think people appreciate that, especially now with everything costing more, you know.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. Exactly.
And you, when we were publishing yours, we were kind of in the whole midst of who even knows when these books are going to arrive.
Yes, this was COVID. Like we didn't know what was going to happen and everything was shut down. So it worked out. And I was somehow I don't remember worrying about it that much, but I don't know why. Because
well, what I do remember is that, we knew there was a hard deadline. Like we knew if we missed this deadline, I think it was in November, like we knew that if we missed this deadline, we would not receive these books at the time that we really, really wanted them. I think it was spring. Right. I think we wanted to receive them in spring. Yes. And so I remember what you had mentioned earlier in this is that, the revisions, like you were amazing, because it was like a lot of, at the very end, like just those final push to get the books or the files to the printer. You have a lot to do, like to make sure that you're going through and checking revisions, and then making sure that the files are ready to go. Right. So there were many late nights at the end to just make sure it got out, because if we missed that deadline, we were looking at another 3 months, I think.
Yes. And you were right there with us, because, it's one thing for me to care. It's my book, but you were right there with those late nights. And I was so grateful. I still am. You were there through, like, you were just always on it. And I was like, whew, thank God.
And I feel like that is ingrained in me. I feel like even when it comes to and I think it goes back to when I was at the publisher, and I remember everyone in the art department were in there, and then everyone else is like, see ya. And they're all like, 5 o'clock, I'm out of here. And we're like, like I gotta make FedEx. So we're like sitting there, like freaking out,
that like trying to get it. Yeah.
And I'm like, so I've always been like, I will not let, like, even my team, I'm like, I will not leave you hanging. Like if there's something happening, I'm going to be right there with you. I'm going to be on Slack, or I'm going to be on email. I'm like, because I knew that feeling of just feeling alone, like, because like I said, everyone was leaving, their job was done. Yeah. They didn't need to do anything. So that goes way back.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I think that makes sense as to why, because it was like, I never felt alone. You were just an email away always. And, those nights get long and repetitive for sure. That's the not fun part about it, but it's inevitable. I think maybe round 2 would be easier though, because I'm sure writing your first book, I think you're just completely like a fish out of water. So I think overthinking is definitely a big thing, and hopefully that won't be the case next time.
And even on our side, we've finessed the process a little bit too, so that we've added team members to make sure that things flow a lot easier, and just making sure that the client, you are taken care of, because it's a big investment, period. There's no hiding that fact. But what makes it worth it is obviously the end product and what comes from that, but also just what we can provide to support you, so that way you feel as though, we are right there with you, and it isn't just me. So that's one of the things that we've been, even working on since the last time we worked together.
Yeah, that's why I love the process. It's like that partnership. So you're really, even though you're self-publishing, you're not alone. And, there's many aspects to this whole deal that I am still like not familiar with, but I was able to like contribute the piece that I know. And we were, as a team, able to make it happen. So it's just great.
Yeah. So you were already thinking about book 2. How are you coming up with that decision? Like, this one is still going pretty strong. And so what is making you decide, like, I think it's time to start creating another one?
The only reason is because everyone is asking for a book 2. I don't want to hear it. I'm like, I gave you what you wanted. Don't ask me to do it again. So that's why I think it's the same reason that we did the first one, was that everyone was asking for a book, and now everyone is asking for a second. I think that I've developed a lot of new recipes since the first one. And so like these feel kind of older now, like these recipes, they're great. And they're still some of my most popular, but in my mind, and maybe in my followers' mind, they're like older.
Right.
And I think they're looking for, there's a lot of new ones that they love, and they want, again, to have in a physical book that they can put in their kitchen. And so, even I'm like, oh, this one's not in the book. This one's not in the book. Like, we just need another one. I think just naturally, it's like, I don't think we have a choice. I think we've got to have a second.
Do you think it'll have any like different, without giving anything away, but like a different bend to it? Or
I'm trying to decide. I'm trying to figure that out. Like, so the first one has, like appetizers, sides, a little bit of desserts, and then like chicken, pork, beef, like casseroles, pastas, sides, I think I said that, and like pantry recipes. So it's like got everything. For the second one, I'm still not sure like if the chapters would mirror the same type of thing, or I'm not sure about. And so I have a spreadsheet, and I'm just putting all of my recipes that I think should go in the second book on the spreadsheet. And I'm going to kind of see how they can make sense in chapter form.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then as far as design, I'm not sure. This is where you come in. So.
Yeah. We'll be able to talk through that. Because it is like, what's great is like since you have this content, it does, I can understand like these are probably the recipes that are in here are probably those that, just like you said, they're not old, but they have been around for a while. Right. So it's almost like now it's like your second wave that's kind of happening, and exactly. they may be a little bit more, I don't know if they're elevated a little more, or there's,
I would say,
So it could be, so it makes sense that it would be the next version.
Yeah, exactly. Like, the ingredient lists are a little longer. Like by now it's almost like the techniques, these techniques, let's like, like you said, elevate them a little bit more, and just like it's cooking with like maybe slightly more sophistication, I would say, but still keeping it simple. Like the audience is still the same, it's not a different, you don't really need to be more advanced. It's just that the recipes themselves are a little bit more sophisticated, or just next level sort of.
Yeah. And are you doing the same thing that you did with the first book? Are you already starting to talk about it with your audience? Are you already giving them little like hints?
The only thing I've said finally is that yes, we will be working on a second one, but now I'm getting like, but are you working on it like now? Or like, no, not really. Like, give me a minute. Sort of though. I am sort of working on it because I'm developing the recipes and letting them sit and having them get like tested again and again out there in the world. So in a way it's in the works, and as far as that goes, but yeah, I'll only admit that yes, like there will be another one, and that's as far as it's gone.
That's as far as it's going. Yeah. Well, and you have to do like, it's almost like, just like we've said, you're so you are in it, like you're creating this content, and there's no reason why it can't be a thought in the back of your head as to like, well, what could the next one be? It's a lot of marinating on that
idea. It is. And again, like seeing the success of the first one, and it is a great other revenue stream. So like it's like almost not even a question, So
and how many books have sold?
About 10,000 so far.
So that's great. A lot of just a little tidbit, which is a lot of traditionally published books don't sell that many. So
yeah, and it's just for sale on the blog, so which is cool. And then of course that's not counting, like there's been that little store though they've sold out and whatnot. But about 10,000. And I think the part that I love the most about that number is the fact that it's been just steady, like as I mentioned before. So it wasn't like an initial big thing and then died. Like, so I think that's the part that I'm loving. It's just like it's every single day, same thing, like just selling. So
that's good. And the warehouse that we set up with you, they're actually in New Hampshire where you're at. So I thought that was amazing. So
it is. Yeah, it's crazy. So we can take a trip over there, grab books, and Mark saw the warehouse, got a tour, he sees what they're doing over there. Yeah,
of course he did.
Of course he did. Exactly. Yeah.
Why wouldn't he?
I don't know, Mark. I know. He's the best.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that worked out well, very well. It's funny. Now they know we're within driving distance.
Yeah.
Get those books out.
That's great though. And so that's part of what we help you do, is just to figure out the right place to put the book depending on the goals of the book. So just like that company in particular gives you the option. If you did want to get on Amazon, they can easily help you. So that's
right.
We try to talk through those things so that way, wherever you land, it's the right place for you. Because the biggest thing you don't want to have to do is like transfer warehouses or try to find someone to do what you hoped that they could do. So
yeah, exactly. Right. And all that stuff, that's where, that stuff gets overwhelming. And that's, again, where you have so much expertise, and between you and Mark powwowing it out. And then I kind of get the like quick rundown version. Like, I think this is best. Yes, I agree. Let's do that. Yeah. Made it very easy for me.
Yeah. Are there any, I don't know, aside from having, the sales that kind of flowed through, consistently, was there anything else that kind of surprised you with the actual publication of the book?
I honestly, just overall how many people were so excited to buy it and continue to be. So, I mean, really, I didn't know what to expect, and my expectations weren't very high because I didn't want to be disappointed. So I think just and even just how many people tag people online, or, people get this book for their wedding present, and I see someone in their wedding dress opening it up, and I'm like, oh my, it's so for sure, just the interest and just seeing people, some even recently someone had a book stand made for this girl to put my book on. Wow. A homemade wooden book stand thing, and just things like that, how excited people get and how proud they are to display it in their kitchen. And just the fact that people, because I don't know, I didn't picture that part of the people actually having it in their kitchen. That's crazy. So I think just the excitement, people love cookbooks. I didn't really realize how much they love to have this physical, pretty thing filled with pictures. They love the pictures. They love that each recipe has a full size image. So just how excited people get over a cookbook, I guess, is a big surprise for me, but I love it. I love seeing that.
Yeah. And I keep telling people, I'm I feel like cookbooks really have had a resurgence lately. I feel for a while there, it really was about the blog. It really was about, this online content. Yes. And, people like yourself, you're more than just a blogger now. You really have become a multimedia company. You're doing video, you're doing social media, you're doing ads, you're doing all the things. You have a Facebook group, and there's all these layers to it. But now I really do feel like people are kind of coming back to this physical product.
Yes.
And it really becomes this, it's part of them. And it becomes something that, you are going to cook from this cookbook, and you have things, your favorites are tagged, and you can have it on your iPad, but it's just not the same.
Like you said, people are over it now. It was cool, and not over it, but they're, it's been done, the online space, and, you're not going to have to deal with ads if you have a cookbook in your hand. So there's definitely an upside. And I think you're right. I think it's just, having it on your iPad's cool. Some people do actually, speaking of, ways to keep going with this, but people do request a digital version of this, which is something that, we could think about too. So just another way to keep it.
Yeah, we can definitely help you with that.
Yeah. I think that would be smart
version. Yeah. It's definitely worth it. And there's so many things that you can do with that. It's just a different, since it is a digital product. There's so many different ways that you can monetize that. And
it's interesting.
Pretty amazing. Yeah.
At first I'm like, well, they're on my blog, so that's your digital version, but people want the book digital version, and they'll pay for it. So why not?
Yeah, absolutely. And the blog, I think what's great is that they're still going to be coming to the blog because this is how they're finding you. This is how they're getting to know you. It's that first entryway. It is just that these products allow them to then have a piece of you in their home. And I think that's really that added value of, these cookbooks. And how it can become part of their just like you said, their cookbook collection. It's on their countertop, and they're kind of spending that extra time with you. And then when they get it done and it's made well, they're like, let me take a picture and let me show everyone, because it looks just like it. The food is there is no. even the photography that you have, it's so realistic in that it's not going to be hard to recreate that. It's going to look like that.
That's my hope, is like that it doesn't look overly, like it's supposed to be eye-catching and glossy looking, but also realistic. So for sure. And to your point, people will still go to the blog. I mean, that was a concern of mine. Like, are they going to not now go to my blog because they have it all in a book? But the thing with the blog is that you're constantly creating new content. So they're going to keep going to your blog. Of course. It's just that they also supplement it with this book that is a part of who you are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you have any advice for someone who is thinking about it? Like, I know that, you have a lot of colleagues that are very curious about all the things. So if somebody is thinking about it, what are the things that you tell them to consider?
I mean, I am obviously a huge advocate for going for it and doing it. But I think the factors to consider are, I mean, it's obviously a lot of work. It is an upfront investment. But I do think that more and more bloggers are looking to diversify their income stream. And for that reason alone, I highly recommend it. I think that, as I mentioned, the ways that I have been marketing it are not in any crazy way. It's really just social media, email, and on the blog. So these are things that any blogger would also be able to replicate as far as marketing goes. So it's nothing crazy, as far as that. I would say a good sense of whether you should go for it or not too would be to check with your audience. Like, is it something that they've been asking for? Or maybe you could poll them and get a sense, is this something that you would buy? Because that's really what it comes down to, is you do need, you want people to buy the book. If you spend all of that time and effort and your resources creating a book, you want people to buy it. So if you have a good grasp of the fact that you think your audience is something that they would want, then it's definitely, I think, worth pursuing. Absolutely. And I think my advice would be also just try not to overthink it. Just kind of try to go with your gut.
Yeah. And I do think, that really does play a lot into it in terms of, taking that next step, which is knowing your business too, right? Knowing, were you selling anything to them prior to the cookbook?
No, I was never into, I'm not like Tessa, Handle the Heat. She's so good at creating different things to sell.
She's got online courses and downloads and
that's just not how I've ever really operated before. It's super smart. It's just not necessarily the way that I like to, I don't get a kick out of that as much as I do creating. I love blogging and creating content. And just putting that out there. But so no, I had never sold anything at all before.
Well, I think that's really impressive because that also plays into how much your audience was ready for it. So,
right.
I think that, they also, going back to, the word that we had used, or they're not exhausted by you selling anything because they were waiting for this. They were waiting to give you money, Stephanie.
It's so weird. It's so weird. I'll never wrap my mind around that.
They were waiting for this, which is so beautiful in its own way, because it really is this natural progression.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I think that's what it is. It's natural. It's never felt forced. It just happened naturally. And I think that's why the second one is going to happen, because it's just feels like there's no way around it.
Yeah. And now, I mean, even with that, you have, there's so many opportunities that you can package them together. You can change the cost. There's all these other opportunities that come out of a second one or something else, even with an ebook or something, there's so many more ways that you can package it and sell it and provide that to your audience so that they can experience it in the way that works best for them.
Exactly. And then, there's new audience members every day. So like you said, people who didn't know about me yesterday know about me today, and now find out I have a cookbook. If I have two, a bundle would be, perfect.
Yeah. And I also think that, the way that you did go about including them from the very beginning, getting them excited about it, and also, again, not overly selling it, we'll say.
Yes.
Like, it's just a consistency. That piece, I think, with your, like, almost like a quiet consistency of like, here it is. I think that's also something really important for the listeners, because they may be in the same spot that you are, where they're not selling anything. Yes, they have a newsletter and they have their website, but they're like, well, how am I going to sell it? So you're a great testament into that. You don't have to have all these different things that you're selling for it to be successful. Like, it really is what you put into it, you know, that feels good to you.
Yeah, it's nothing fancy. Like that, it just, you know, like I said, I'm not savvy in ways where I, you know, in bundles and selling things and courses and this and that, but I guess it's proof you don't really need anything fancy to just, and I think, again, the audience just appreciates being involved in the decisions too. They feel like they're a part of it. And so then they want to buy something that they were a part of the creation. They feel like they're involved. So I think that's a huge like takeaway, is that you're letting them know that there's a book coming, but you're like, I think by involving them, it doesn't come across as salesy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're a busy woman, so I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me and to tell our audience a little bit about, you know, how you have created this beautiful cookbook and how you've marketed it to your audience. So Stephanie, I thank you so much. It was such a pleasure working with you and Mark on this book. I can't wait for the second one.
I was going to say, like, good, because we're going to do it again. No, it was wonderful. I can't recommend you enough. If anyone ever has questions for me, they can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to, you know, talk about my experience in working with you, but it was a beautiful experience and I am looking forward to doing it again.
Yeah. And just as a little plug, tell them where they can find you.
My handle is The Cozy Cook. So it's just The Cozy Cook everywhere. So Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, YouTube, TikTok, and then, or Stephanie at thecozycook.com. Awesome. And of course, thecozycook.com.
Thecozycook.com. Yes. Well, thanks so much, Stephanie. And I can't wait for us to chat again soon.
Me too. Thank you so much.
All right.